That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, so we made this video quite a while now, but now we have rookies that we can go through and we can actually throw into these Cornerstone running back rankings. We're going to do the same thing with the wide receivers, but that will either come tomorrow or the next day. I haven't decided yet. But real quick, let me just go through and clarify exactly what we're doing here, because a lot of people were confused when, our last video we made, we actually just ranked the 2020 class of running backs compared to that 2021 draft class. I'm going to make it a lot easier for everybody here. It's just, if you're 23 years older or younger, I'm going to classify you as a Cornerstone running back, and you will be ranked in these top 12 rankings. And of course, if you want to join an awesome community of Dynasty fantasy football players, get into Dynasty leagues with myself, as well as everybody who watches this channel. If you want to get an in-depth podcast breaking down your Dynasty team, if you want to get access to all our startup rankings, to all our Dynasties rookie rankings, you can do that over there on Patreon. You can find the link down there in the description of the video, as well as the comment section. But I think that should be it. Drop a like, leave a comment, letting me know how stupid I am, and subscribe to the channel. And let's go into this, and let's start it off with everybody's running back one. I'm not really going to have to dive too much in on this, but Jonathan Taylor. Now with Jonathan Taylor, yes, you could have some question marks centering around this Indianapolis Colts offense in the long term. Carson Wentz looked really bad the last game, yada, yada, yada. It doesn't freaking matter. If you're looking at the running back one last year, that was Jonathan Taylor, and this isn't a running back that came from nowhere. He has the pedigree. This is a player that was a top-level high school prospect, gets to Wisconsin, 2,000-yard season, 2,000-yard season, 2,000-yard season, goes to the NFL Combine, runs a 4.39 40-yard dash at literally, the best size you could ask for, 5'10", 226 pounds. We've said this time and time again, but if you're looking at Jonathan Taylor in terms of his size, in terms of his athletic profile, and his just elite college production, it's like you went through and just entered into Breaking Bad's, Walter White's, Meth Lab, whatever lab you wanted to enter in, and you could just create whatever you wanted. That's what you would create in an NFL running back. Jonathan Taylor, this past year, he was the running back one overall. He came out there, dropped almost 350 fantasy points with over 23 points per game. The next best running back on a points per game basis that wasn't Derrick Henry was actually Austin Eckler down there at 21. Then beyond that, nobody else is even getting in the 20s. Jonathan Taylor, an extremely safe asset. If you're looking at a one quarterback format, Jonathan Taylor is going to be the most valuable player in that format. You can make the argument in Superflex, depending on your league settings, if you want to go with him or an elite level quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. But regardless, Taylor's number one. Let's go over to our next guy. This is going to be someone that also has a pretty bad situation coming into this upcoming season. And this is going to be Najee Harris. Now with Harris, he's already 23 years old. Najee Harris, let me confirm with this before I make an ass out of myself, but I believe he's older than Jonathan Taylor. Yes, I think we said that correctly, but let me just go through and double check. Yes, Najee Harris is almost a full year older than Jonathan Taylor, despite being drafted after him. And I know a lot of people are going to have an issue with the situation. And trust me, I get it. Right now, it looks like in Pittsburgh, you're going to have Mason Rudolph as the starting quarterback. And while Mason Rudolph has a pretty damn nice name, I will say that, at the end of the day, if you were ranking the starting quarterbacks in the NFL right now, he'd be, bottom three, one of the worst starting quarterbacks that you could find. But I got news for everybody. Right now, we are recording this in early February. We have a lot to happen until we actually get to the start of the season. I don't want to say that there's no chance Mason Rudolph is the starting quarterback here in Pittsburgh, but come on. They're going to be able to go through, try to find a free agent. Maybe they bring in someone like Jimmy Garoppolo, which you can make an argument that's not much. It doesn't really matter. Maybe they bring in an old veteran quarterback as such that's not going to really have the favor of his team anymore. Maybe that guy's Teddy Bridgewater, or maybe they go in the NFL draft and they go out there and take someone like Kenny Pickett, take someone like Matt Corral. There are a lot of different avenues that this team could bring in. Not a great quarterback. I'm not expecting them to get Aaron Rodgers, but just a marginal quarterback. And what was Ben Roethlisberger last year? It's not like Ben Roethlisberger was anything special. And if you're looking at the usage that Najee Harris had in Pittsburgh, this is a running back that weighed 230 pounds coming into the NFL, and he put that to work. This is a running back that played damn near every single snap this past season. If you're looking at snap rates, no running back had a better one than Najee Harris, and especially with just his usage in the receiving game as well. In a PPR format, I have no questions. We're going to have Najee Harris at 2. And then going to our next running back at 3, going to be someone that y'all know we've liked for a very long time, but I don't want to talk about him too much because y'all are tired of hearing it by now. But DAndre Swift. Now with DAndre Swift, yes, I mean, let's just repeat myself for the bajillionth time. He's the new age Aaron Jones, the new age Alvin Kamara. He's the running back that's going to get every valuable touch in his backfield. The targets, he's going to also get the work in the red zone. Now, yes, this is another very bad offense, just like Pittsburgh. I get it, but with DAndre Swift, just like Najee Harris, he was a top 10 running back this year on a points per game basis in this horrendous Detroit Lions offense. And I would make the argument based on the young offensive line that Detroit has with some of the best young offensive linemen in the NFL, combined with the additional draft assets that they're going to be getting this season. On top of that, that this offense can only get better from where they were last year. And if this offense can only get better from where they were last year, that's going to mean a bump up in red zone opportunities for Mr. DAndre Swift. And I mean, not to mention that you actually have his statistics getting skewed a little bit here based on the end of the season. He comes back from that injury. He's someone that probably shouldn't have come back. He probably wasn't fully healthy. Also, you have the week that he got injured, only scoring 3.5 points with only 3 carries in that game before he left. So if you remove those weeks, DAndre Swift is actually looking real nice. DAndre Swift is actually up there with Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook on a per-game basis in his second year in the NFL, and already probably a bottom 3 offense. Now, that offense probably is only going to get better, and I'd be very surprised if this team goes out there and makes an investment in the running back position. And now our next option on this list was someone that we were consistently saying, buy low, buy low, buy low, buy low, but never panned out year one, Javonte Williams. Now, Javonte Williams, far from the same level of prospect that you had with really any of these other running backs. In my opinion, I mean, Jonathan Taylor, DAndre Swift vastly exceeded Javonte Williams as just pure running back prospects coming into the NFL. And I actually wasn't a massive fan of Javonte Williams because if you were looking at where NFL people were projecting him to go in the NFL draft, a lot of NFL mock drafters thought he was going to be falling to the late 3rd last year. Now, everybody in the Dynasty community said that wasn't going to happen, and the Dynasty community got it right. And the second that he got the team investment of the Denver Broncos trading up to select him in the top 40 draft picks, I mean, everything went out the window. He was the youngest running back in the draft, profiled to be a 3-down guy, had the team investment, checked every single box that you look for a running back. Not to mention that if you're looking at what he did this past year, he was one of the better running backs in the NFL on a per touch basis. Now, of course, so much is going to go into, does Melvin Gordon come back this upcoming season? Now, Melvin Gordon's a free agent. I know that from a dynasty fantasy football perspective, it seems like there's no chance that Melvin Gordon comes back. Everybody who has Javonte Williams in their leagues is just saying, hell, I mean, Javonte Williams can easily handle a 3-down workload. Why would they bring Melvin Gordon back? It's because the Denver Broncos don't play fantasy football. They play real life NFL football. And if they can bring back Melvin Gordon on, say, a $3 contract and they think that it's a fine deal, maybe you actually see Melvin Gordon coming back. Regardless, Javonte Williams will be able to expand his own market share in this backfield and will only be able to improve this upcoming season. Still extremely young. He was actually 20 years old at the time of the NFL draft last year. Going to be turning 22 this upcoming season. So I think if he profiles to be a bell cow guy, and more importantly, you have the chance that this offense taking a significant step forward if they're able to get Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. Very excited about Javonte Williams. Now, our next running back was not anywhere close to this mark on the last time we made this video, but trust me, I could not be more excited to have him here. This is Cam Akers. Now, everybody knows that we had Cam Akers as my dynasty running back 4 overall, not in our Cornerstone rankings, but in our overall rankings on Patreon last offseason before the torn Achilles. Now, he tears his Achilles. I don't want to say panic sell. I'm telling people to go out there, sell for 2023 first. I mean, just go out there and recoup what value you can get, because if we were looking at the history of running backs with torn Achilles, I mean, really, it was horrendous. You never had those running backs being able to come back. I mean, I don't even want to say in a year. You never had those running backs coming back and being what they were before. And the most recent example of this would be someone like Marlon Mack, who suffered an injury week 1 of 2020, not really being able to do anything this past season. But D'Onta Foreman is one running back, of course, hook 'em horns, that came out and was able to go and really just bucked this trend of running backs flaming out in the NFL after their torn Achilles. Now, it took D'Onta Foreman, I believe, 2 years to be able to finally make an impact for the Tennessee Titans after tearing his own Achilles his rookie season for the Houston Texans, where Cam Akers was able to come back 6 months after that injury. Now, he hasn't looked great in the playoffs or anything, but at the end of the day, he's getting the ball 20 plus times in a single game. They're clearly willing to lean on him, and I'm expecting that he only gets more explosive this upcoming season when he has the full offseason to go through and rehab. I mean, remember, in that 2020 draft class, just like Javonte Williams, who's the youngest running back in the class, only 20 years old. I mean, he was a great pass catcher at Florida State. I know he hasn't shown that in the NFL just yet, but if you go back and look at his college target share at Florida State, it was very similar to someone like Travis Etienne, someone like DAndre Swift. Cam Akers is an elite level pass catcher. He has the prototypical size to be a 3-down running back. He has the team investment. He is an elite level athlete as well. He was the #1 high school recruit coming back, I believe, was that the 2017? I don't know what high school recruiting class that was. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was right there, #1 as a dynamic Wildcat quarterback. But that's way back then. Nonetheless, Cam Akers, dynasty running back last offseason. This offseason, we're going to have him lower than that just because I want to be able to see him come back fully from that injury. But in our Cornerstone rankings, we'll have him at running back 5. And going over to running back 6, another running back coming off a significant injury. This is going to be J.K. Dobbins. Now with Dobbins, I mean, just a month ago, I was ranking him over Cam Akers because if you're looking at the history, I mean, of torn ACLs, way less worrisome than what you had with Akers himself. But now that Dobbins is probably going to be splitting that backfield again with Gus Edwards. I mean, if you saw the contract extension Gus Edwards got last offseason before he tore his own ACL, I mean, it really does show that this is a team that wants to have a committee backfield. We saw that this past year as well. Now, I know there were a couple of games where Devonta Freeman was able to go out there and be a bell cow option, but at the end of the day, I mean, they were looking at Devonta Freeman versus Le'Veon Bell, who was on his 4th team. I don't necessarily think that they want to have that feature down running back based on the actions we have seen this team take. And with J.K. Dobbins, the reason we're going to have him below Cam Akers is even in college, going back to Ohio State, he wasn't the best pass catching running back. Let me pull up his team target share back then just to illustrate this. Obviously, I'm going off the top of the head right now, but yeah, 7.6%. That is lower than our threshold that we have set historically at 8.5. A little bit older than Cam Akers as well. And a big thing is, I mean, if you're playing alongside Lamar Jackson is not going to be dumping the ball out of the backfield like Matthew Stafford will, because Lamar Jackson could just go run it himself. So for a PPR format, I actually believe that Cam Akers does have more receiving game upside, not based on what we've seen in the NFL so far, but instead going back to their college profiles where we know that Cam Akers is a fantastic pass catcher. And now, speaking of someone else that we want to assume is a great pass catcher, yet we haven't seen it in the NFL, also in that same draft class, let's go over to Antonio Gibson. Now, with Antonio Gibson, this is someone that recently fell pretty damn far in our last Dynasty mock draft in this channel. And I know a lot of people were upset with it because, I mean, you have the right reason to be. Remember, in that 2020 draft class, no one was higher on Antonio Gibson than we were, because you go through, you'll look at these boxes checked. An elite level athlete, a 4.39 40-yard dash. I mean, prototypical size, 6 foot, 228 pounds. And to go along with this, the team investment, he goes within the top 100 picks of the NFL draft and an elite college target share because he was a former wide receiver. So he checked those 4 big boxes that we are looking for. So in the second round of those Dynasty rookie drafts in 2020, I was taking Antonio Gibson every single time. Now, I don't want to get as excited as other people with Antonio Gibson this offseason. However, like, trust me, you know I have him in all my Dynasty leagues. Now, I know J.D. McKissic's no longer going to be in Washington, or at least we believe he's not going to be in Washington. Right now, he is not signed with the team for this upcoming season, but he is a free agent. So it looks like the path is clear for Antonio Gibson to take work on third downs. However, I am just slightly hesitant because I think there's a small chance that Antonio Gibson gets Trey Masoned this offseason. And no, there's not going to be a Todd Gurley level running back prospect coming in this year's NFL draft to just go through and completely erase Antonio Gibson and make him where he looks like he was never an NFL running back before. However, I think that this is the perfect example of a running back that everybody in the Dynasty community believes is featured to be a bell cow running back this upcoming season. And we haven't gotten through free agency. We haven't gotten through the NFL draft just yet. And if this team does move on from J.D. McKissic, I could easily see Washington deciding that they actually need to bring in another running back to pair alongside Antonio Gibson, where most people aren't expecting it. Now, I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but I'm saying I think there's an outside chance. So for that reason, I'm going to have Antonio Gibson ranked below both Akers and Dobbins when he's playing on a worse offense as well, despite the fact that, of course, he does have a ceiling that I don't think many other running backs in the NFL possess, given his athletic profile and what we perceive to be his receiving game capability, even though we haven't gotten to see it in the NFL so far. Now, going over to our running back 8, this is going to be DAndre Swift. I'm sorry. It's going to be not Aaron Jones. It's going to be Travis Etienne. Okay, let's go over to Travis Etienne, just like what we were talking about last offseason with DAndre Swift. One of these running backs that, yes, trust me, I get it. I understand. He's not going to get 30-plus touches in a game. He's not going to turn into Ezekiel Elliott. He's not going to turn into Dalvin Cook. He's not going to turn into Derrick Henry. That's not his playing style. And if you're playing in a half PPR format, you need to lower Travis Etienne down your rankings here compared to some of these other running backs. And if you're playing in a non-PPR league, you need to drastically slide him down. But one of the reasons we're going to have Travis Etienne here is because if you look at the receiving game options for Trevor Lawrence, really, there aren't that many. And also, to look at that injury suffered by James Robinson, I know a lot of us want to just go and say, hey, we just saw Cam Akers. We just want to say Cam Akers made it back in 6 months. James Robinson's good to go. No, I would rather look at the long history of injuries that we have with torn Achilles and the running back position and try to determine what that means from James Robinson rather than just look at the one example that we have in the shortest term with Cam Akers. So I want to say about to go all in on Travis Etienne as a running back that I perceived to be that DAndre Swift profile with the speed, the receiving game ability, the adequate size, the team investment, as well as James Robinson going down presumably for training camp, preseason, in the beginning of next season as well, because that injury happened at the very end of the year. Love getting me some Travis Etienne in a PPR format. And now going over to our next running back 9. Yes, we are still ahead of the rookies here. I mean, I'm going to rank these rookies a little lower than most because we don't have landing spots or we don't know their capital just yet, but we'll get to them in a second. Let's go over to Josh Jacobs. I actually think Jacobs is one of the safer running backs to take a stab at in Dynasty this offseason because the Kenyon Drake contract. And I know a lot of people aren't really going to follow me here, but if you're looking at the team investment into the running back position already for Las Vegas, they took Jacobs in the first round in 2019. Not only did they take Jacobs in the first round in 2019, but they committed $11 million guaranteed last offseason to Kenyon Drake. So this is a team that you could argue they have more invested into the running back position than almost any other team in the NFL. And with that level of investment, I'm not worried about this being a potential landing spot for someone like James Conner, for someone like Leonard Fournette, for someone like Isaiah Spiller, who we're about to talk about. So if we're looking at Josh Jacobs as one of the safest running backs in terms of his job security this upcoming season, I think you have to rank him pretty highly, especially considering the fact that, I mean, we just talked about someone like Najee Harris. I know Najee Harris, he seems like he is incredibly young. However, if you're looking at the age difference between Josh Jacobs and Najee, there is no age difference. Like, let me pull up their exact birthdays here so I don't just completely lie to y'all. But yeah, Josh Jacobs, 23. I mean, at this moment, he will turn 24 in a couple days. He'll turn 24 on February 11th. Now, if we're looking at when Najee Harris is going to turn 24, he turns 24 March 9th. So about 29 days after Josh Jacobs. He's still incredibly young. We actually saw him have an uptick in his receiving game usage this past season. So I think Josh Jacobs could potentially be an intriguing buy low candidate. Now let's go over to a couple of the rookie running backs. We're going to have Isaiah Spiller ranked here at running back 10. Now with Isaiah Spiller, I'm not going to lie, he can move up drastically with these rankings. I'm going to be very hesitant at this time. I know we kind of discussed this a little bit earlier about his landing spot and his situation. You know what? Instead of being that worried about his actual landing spot, one thing that I am worried about, and I know people don't like talking about this for whatever reason, even though at the running back position, not many things matter more. His team investment. I mean, right now, of course, we do not have great information when it comes to projected draft capital. And this information is only going to get better and better and better as we go through the offseason. Hopefully, by the time we get to the NFL draft, the NFL Combine, will be in a much better position to evaluate these rookies. And we already have all of these rookies ranked on Patreon, and I'm going to continue to update these as well. I mean, one reason that I like Isaiah Spiller is this is a running back that profiles to be a 3-down guy that can catch passes, and that right now looks like he's going to go in the top 2 rounds of the NFL draft. Now, if he gets that draft capital, I'm fine having Isaiah Spiller here if he sneaks his way into the middle of the 2nd round. However, a lot of people lately have almost been projecting Isaiah Spiller to be a 3rd round pick, sometimes a late 3rd near the compensatory range where a guy like Alexander Mattison went, I believe, in the 2019 draft class. So with Isaiah Spiller, with Breece Hall as well, Breece Hall is going to be ranked right after him. I'm going to just be a little hesitant. And if you wanted to swap Breece Hall and Isaiah Spiller for the time being, I think that's completely fine. Now, yes, pretty much everybody that you're going to see is mock drafting Kenneth Walker to go ahead of those 2 running backs in the NFL draft. And I know a lot of people are probably upset saying, Mason, you talk about draft capital, you talk about opportunity all the time. Why the hell are you going to have 2 running backs ranked ahead of the running back 1 off the NFL draft board this season? It's because Kenneth Walker doesn't have the receiving game capability that you're going to see with either Isaiah Spiller or Breece Hall. In my opinion, it looks like Isaiah Spiller is going to be the best pass catching running back. And I think that they're going to be very similar in terms of their just overall builds and the workloads that they can handle. So I'm going to prefer the guy that, if they're going in the same range of the NFL draft, that I believe to be a little bit of a better pass catcher. That's why I'm going to have Isaiah Spiller at 1. That's why I'm going to have Breece Hall at 2. I'm not even going to have Kenneth Walker right after. I mean, instead of having Kenneth Walker at running back 12 in these rankings, I'm going to have Michael Carter. Because with Michael Carter, very similar to, a player like Javonte Williams, I wasn't all in on Michael Carter last offseason when he fell to the beginning of the 4th round of the NFL draft, and we looked at historical hit rates. Of course, I was a lot higher on Michael Carter than just a random 4th round running back, because every other measure looked like he was a pretty damn good bet in fantasy. If you looked at his size, if you looked at, more importantly, his receiving game capability, Michael Carter looked like someone that could be a success in the NFL, and he showed those flashes his rookie season. Now, of course, there's some question marks centering around the overall offense. Are they ever going to be able to be an offense that has, above average trips to the red zone? Also, there were some questions about his durability as well, but I'm going to be willing to overlook those and more so bet on the fact that he is attached to that rookie contract, that he is still incredibly young. And I think that also seeing how good Javonte Williams was his own rookie season maybe bodes well for a player like Michael Carter. So I'm going to be betting on Michael Carter over Kenneth Walker at this point in a PPR format. However, if you're playing in a non-PPR league, Kenneth Walker is going to be up here. And I think that should be it for our top 12 running backs. Afterwards, we would have a conversation between Kenneth Walker or A.J. Dillon for running back 13. I'd love to know your opinion down there in the comment section. And I'd also love to know if you think we got anything else wrong with these rankings. But please go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to join an awesome community of Dynasty fantasy football players, get in a Dynasty league with us, go get an in-depth podcast breaking down your Dynasty team, get all our Dynasty rankings, get all our rookie rankings. You can find that all over there on Patreon in the description of the video and in the comment section. Thank you again. Hope you have a great day. Hope we get to see you out with the video tomorrow.